This is the tragic full history of Rathma, the First Necromancer, student of Trag'Oul and the firstborn son of Lilith and Inarius, making him one of Diablo's most enigmatic characters, and today we'll be outlining his meteoric rise and tragic fall, plus the crucial role he and his prophecy plays during the events of Diablo 4.
It started in dreams. I saw shattered images of the end of Sanctuary. The scales of a great serpent carried these visions. And so I went to visit him. My and the serpent's thoughts met, and the fragmented future was mended together. I put it down in order, and the prophecy was born.
Rathma's story begins after the creation of Sanctuary by rogue angels and demons, led by the angel Inarius and demon Lilith. After absconding from Pandemonium with the Worldstone and creating the world we would come to know as Sanctuary, the rogue angels and demons would engage in procreation, an act viewed as blasphemous by both sides of the eternal conflict, for the union of the two resulted in the birth of a new creature, the Nephalem. Born of the flesh of demons and the spiritual essence of angels, their souls a perfect blend of the two, balanced in every way. It is noted the firstborn Nephalem of even those that would come to be known as Firstborn was Linarian, and was born to Lilith and Inarius directly. Ironic that a Nephalem born to the greatest of rogue armies would go on to become the patron saint of protectors of the balance. Being born to such powerful parents would earn Linarian the reputation of being one of the most powerful Nephalem to grace the ranks of the firstborn, said to be rivaled only by another by the name of Helgrotha, who is only mentioned in 2 other texts, including Scales of the Serpent, where she gives her bone to Mendeln to become his ivory dagger, and is a main character in the short story The Gospel of Death, most recently published in Tales from the Herodric Library. Linarian was also a deeply introspective individual, cited as often wandering off on his own to ponder the nature of life and death, and even teaching others of his kind, sharing his wisdom and philosophies. This early obsession would earn him the attention of the guardian of Sanctuary, Trag'Oul, the great dragon of balance, who we will cover in another video. It's this attention that would come to be his greatest boon in the years to come. As the Nephalem grew in power, the rebel armies of angels and demons grew fearful that such power would attract the attention of the larger armies of the high heavens and burning hells. So, while Lilith was away for a time, the rogue angels and demons brought it before Inarius that the Nephalem should be destroyed to prevent such a confrontation. While Inarius would want to spend some time mulling over this decision, not jumping to rash action, Lilith would get word of this suggestion and return from her retreat, bearing teeth and claw as a massive beast, hell-bent on killing the rogue angels and demons who dared to threaten the livelihood of her perfect weapons, her children, before she was eventually banished to the void by Inarius himself. Fearing for his safety, Trag'Oul would appear before Linarian and take him to a place where neither Lilith nor Inarius, nor the ravages of time, would hold sway over him. It was here Linarian would be named Rathma, meaning student, in Trag'Oul's native tongue. Here, he would master the art of necromancy and learn the true nature of the balance and the great cycle of being. After an indeterminate amount of time, Rathma would be seen again during the events of the Edirum's crusade against the Temple of the Triune and the Cathedral of Light. As Lilith returned from the void, Rathma, who is presumed to have kept watch over Sanctuary along Trag'Oul, would become involved directly in these events that is often referred to as the Sin War, which is spoken of in Diablo 1 as being an ongoing affair by Adria the Witch.
There are many artifacts within the labyrinth that hold powers beyond the comprehension of mortals. Some of these hold fantastic power that can be used by either the light or the darkness. Securing the anvil from below could shift the course of the Sin War towards the light.
During this time, Mendeln Diomed, showing an affinity for matters relating to the balance, would be taken under Rathma's wing as a student and companion. During the turning of the tide, Rathma would guide Uldissian Diomed into the heart of Mount Ariat and into the chamber of the Worldstone, teaching him how to alter the Worldstone's frequency, removing the limiter long since placed on the Nephalem and allowing Uldissian to ascend to infinitely greater heights of power. However, the continued turmoil between the Edirim and the Triune and Cathedral would finally earn the attention of the high heavens, and with Trag'Oul using every ounce of power he could to keep the armies of heaven from entering the plane where Sanctuary is located, Rathma was forced to confront Inarius, asking him for aid. But vain Inarius would hear nothing of it, even from his own son, and banish him to the void as well. Trag'Oul would then need Mendeln to retrieve Rathma from the void, using the last of his powers to reach out into the vast, empty space, keeping Mendeln tethered to him, so the young necromancer would not fall into the void, as Rathma and Lilith were now both prisoners within. Unable to avoid the armies of angels, the Edirim faced off against the armies of heaven, hell, and Inarius' Cathedral of Light at the Battle of the Golden Path. It's here that Rathma would intervene again, rallying the remaining ancient Nephalem, Bull Kathos, and an unnamed female warrior to fend off the invading armies, though ultimately it would be the sacrifice of Uldissian that wins the day. The final act of Rathma came after the Battle of the Golden Path, as the Angiris Council voted against the destruction of Sanctuary, but chose instead to wipe the memories of the Edirim and the denizens of Sanctuary. Rathma and Trag'Oul would protect the memories of Mendeln, who would be named Kalan, and would come to found the Priests of Rathma, or Necromancers as fans of the series would come to know them, with a tad more familiarity, with the exception of the intervention of the Priests of Rathma in the fights against the Dark Wanderer, Baal at Ariat, Skarn's search for the Worldstone shards, the End of Days, and Malthiel's assault. It's unclear what Rathma was up to after the events of the Sin War, long believed by his acolytes to be dead, and given his prediction of his own end, as recorded by Kalan, they had justifiable reason. However, the timeless bodies of the Nephalem would not allow Rathma to simply pass from old age, and he would live on in secret, remaining an elusive figure whose teachings would be the only apparent living legacy on Sanctuary. That is, until Diablo 4. Throughout the course of Act 1 in Diablo 4, we catch mention yet again of the firstborn son of Sanctuary, starting outside the town of Nevesk, whispered around the hero in the form of Rathma's prophecy, which will be gone into greater detail in another video. This prophecy will be the guiding factor of the first act, with both Lilith and Inarius searching for the First Necromancer, presumably still alive. However, according to the brother Orlin in the Alabaster Monastery, Inarius had met with Rathma years before the events of the first act.
And so he was, until the sweet poetry of the prophecy rang out. To divine its message, he pilgrimaged deep into Sanctuary's heart to meet... well, I shouldn't say. It pains me to withhold the truth of his light, but I sense it in you, pilgrim, so I shall tell you. He went to speak with the first of his children, Rathma, the prophecy's true author. He emerged armed with sacred conviction, a holy battle at the center of the prophecy to be won by his blade. He has meditated here for years and years ever since, readying to meet fate head-on.
And at the end of the quest line, we find Rathma lying in his necropolis in view of an enormous mural of Trag'Oul, his staff driven through his chest. It stands to reason that this had indeed happened a long time ago, as Rathma's arms had slowly begun to deteriorate, as is customary with first-generation ancients, and their bodies which take longer to decay. This was no fresh kill. As the player enters his sanctum, Rathma's spirit leads us to the heart of his necropolis, showing the possible cause of his death, the denial of Inarius' acquisition of the key to the doors of hell, which he hid in his staff. Vain Inarius, yet again, proved that pride truly goes before the fall, as he held the key in his hands but didn't even know it, and it fell into Lilith's instead. While this scene does carry with it deeply troubling connotations as illustrated in his prophecy, the possibility still exists that Rathma is not yet gone. The guide in his necropolis speaks in past tense, and though this may simply be Rathma speaking on the events to come, there's an air of present tense in his words, which could allude to his continued existence and intervention, just without physical form. And wouldn't that just be the way of the First Necromancer, and student of the guardian of the great cycle of being?
You are the last visitor to my sanctum. Though, you come too late, just as Lilith did before you. For it was my father, Inarius, who arrived here first. It unfolded as my visions foretold, how we hurtle towards the prophecy's end.
I don't know if you would have chosen to stand beside me in this new world, Rathma. But I would have saved your place, just the same. And now, all that you might have been has been stolen from me. Stolen. This key unlocks more than the doors of hell. It unlocks our path to the future. A future made possible because of the price you paid. Your sacrifice will not have been in vain.